The recent attacks on Abu Dhabi International Airport reflect a troubling but not new development in the struggle between Iran's proxies and the Arab states of the Gulf. In the past, Abu Dhabi Airport has been hit reportedly by a drone strike, but this, which resulted in the death of at least 3 people and injuries to possibly as many as 8, is an escalation. So the question is, what does this mean for the Emirates? What does this mean for the Arab Gulf states? What does this mean for the war in Yemen? Let me start by talking about the nature of drones. The Houthi drone inventory is provided entirely by Iran, as is the ballistic missile inventory. In the past, when there's been an attack on the Arabian Peninsula, the Houthis have claimed credit for it, even if the drones clearly, came from Iran or Iranian-controlled Iraq, as was the case with the Abqaiq attack in 2019. People are assuming that the drones must have been launched from Yemen and hit the airport in Abu Dhabi, because that's what the Houthis said. I'm not sure we can necessarily go with that. The fact that the targets chosen were fuel trucks rather than a more visible infrastructure such as a control tower or passenger terminal suggests that this may have been a small drone, possibly even a hobby drone with a small explosive attack, which attacked a low prestige but high explosive target like a fuel truck. So this could have been launched from any neighboring country, could even have been launched from within the United Arab Emirates itself, since small drones could be easily, placed in the trunk of a car and moved around. So I think we need to be hesitant as to, attributing the actual lines of attack. As for who's responsible for it, I think that we should take the Houthis at their word. The only question is how much of this is Houthis, how much of it is Iran Houthis. Recently, there have been setbacks on the battlefield for the Houthis. Supposedly, Marib has been falling to the Houthis, or been on the verge of falling to the Houthis for almost 2 years now. That initiative seems to have shifted towards the coalition. Recently, the Houthis have been ejected from Shabwa province in Yemen by an Emirati organized and supported force called the Giants Brigade. So I think what we're seeing here is either the Houthis or those acting on behalf of the Houthis, which means an Iranian direct involvement or proxy, seeking to put the cost of the war in Yemen back in the homeland of the UAE. And in doing so, they've struck at the heart of Abu Dhabi's vision of itself as a modern, vibrant World Trade Center. Now, the next question we have to ask ourselves is, what does this mean for the UAE and its role in Yemen? The UAE has already scaled back direct involvement in the Houthi confrontation to a very large extent, and seems to be operating through local forces which they support. What this attack shows is that they're still part of the coalition, at least in the eyes of the Houthi. They have not stepped back from the war. And I think this will probably lead to an assessment of the Emirati role and the Emirati cooperation with the Saudis, who are directly involved in combat as well as indirectly. There's 2 possible reactions. One is a total withdrawal. I think that the Emiratis already consider themselves to have withdrawn from this and are at a level that they view as sufficient to maintain their interests. And the second is to double down and try to exact some sort of punishment against the people who they feel are responsible for it. I think that at this point, the second is the most likely response, just because I think that they're going to try to emphasize that attacks against the urban centers of the UAE is a red line crossed, and that there will be a heavy price for this. But that being said, decision-making among Gulf elites is opaque. We don't really know what will happen. So fasten your seatbelts. We're in for a bumpy ride. Thank you, and thanks to the Gulf International Forum.